Hi, everybody. Welcome to Short Fuse. I'm Duncan Robertson. I'm here with Ollie. Ollie, say hi.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello,
good.
Duncan.
Yeah. Hi. Nice to see you again, as always. Why are you biting your lip?
I think what's interesting is I did an awkward, hello, and then you did a proper hi.
Yeah.
and that was more awkward than what I did, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, we just need to get over the awkwardness and get into the podcast, don't we?
I don't think so at all. I don't think we're capable of getting over the awkwardness.
All right. Well, we are here today to talk about one particular type of technology, and that is BCI, or otherwise known, or that is short for brain-computer interfaces. So neural technology, cables in your brain that can do stuff with your thoughts, control your body, control your thoughts, or you can use your thoughts to control other things, which is fascinating and terrifying at the same time. I think Ollie and I are going to vote on whether we are long or short on brain-computer interfaces. So as always, Ollie, I'm going to come to you first because it is my prerogative as the person who does the introduction. Are you long or short on brain-computer interfaces?
It's true. It's like the first person who gets to go on noughts and crosses, isn't it?
Yeah,
you dictate the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So I'm at a significant disadvantage here once again, because I think you know quite a lot more about this than I do. I've done a small amount of research, and all that it's left me with is like most people who are in my shoes say like, oh, I don't know anything about BCI. And the person in your shoes goes like, oh, never heard of a cochlear implant, never heard of a hearing aid, right? And they're like, oh no, of course I have. Well, that's BCI. So I've immediately spiked your guns because I feel like that's exactly the type of thing you would have said to me.
It's not actually, because I'm talking about specifically there's two types of BCI, invasive and non-invasive. And we are specifically talking about the brain here. So where we're going at hearing aids or cochlear implants or stuff like that, I'm not counting them.
Right. So I've got another defensive strategy here because
right.
I was listening. So this is all I've done. All of my research has been like, how can I scupper Duncan's attack?
Go on then. Show me out.
I read a journal and then listened to the follow-up presentation that a couple of doctors were doing. And one of the people, just like you said, invasive versus non-invasive. And all of the doctors said, no such thing.
Oh, okay.
No such thing. Everything, and they were like, we understand why you would think the bit where we're drilling into your skull perhaps is a bit more invasive, but there's no such thing. It's all invasive. So there's no way of it not being invasive and being. And anyway, they had this big argument that like, oh, even if it's sitting on top of your head, you have to change it all the time. It might fall off. It needs to be upgraded. Like there's no kind of plug and play, forget type thing. So anyway, that's another valid defense, I think.
Well,
doctors.
I would say invasive equals opening up your skull and putting something into your brain. Non-invasive equals placing something around your head that can read your electromagnetic brain waves. How about that?
That would make you a Philistine in the eyes of the medical world, according to one podcast.
Well researched, Ollie, but you're avoiding the question.
I absolutely am. I'm buying myself time while I Google, just like, hey, ChatGPT, what
should I be long or short on this?
So I'm long. Because I think there are a couple of things. One of them, is obviously an area of significant exploration, which is in the healthcare sector. So a lot of the examples from the more, I suppose, philanthropic, healthcare focused companies is we'll be able to help people talk and communicate. And
philanthropic, we can make loads of money from this.
Well, no, because some are genuinely philanthropic. Some of them genuinely are like, oh, we don't plan on making any money from this.
Right.
We plan on helping people, and that's it. Now, I think Google said that at the start, didn't it?
Yeah.
We just want to
don't be evil.
Just want to help people.
Don't be evil. Let's just scrub that from our.
Yeah, we just want to help people get significant returns funneled to our shareholders. That's all. But like,
exactly.
Some are philanthropic, but if there's that cohort that like, hey, there are people that suffer from the following illnesses, and this will help solve or mitigate the impact of that, then I'm long for that. So yeah, long.
Okay, I'm gonna split my vote because I think it's really important to split.
You do this every time.
I know. I know.
Every time it's like, oh, I'm actually going to hedge, Ollie. There are other strategies. You don't just go. So if you know anything about
We don't have.
finance, mate, but
Nobody wrote any rules for our voting, so I'm making the rules up as we
we
go
did.
along. Well, yeah, exactly. I'm writing them
We
as we
did.
speak.
You can be long or short, was what we said.
I'm long on it for medical use because it's clearly got a benefit, and that benefit being the ability for people who are um, disabled in some way to use the interface to control other equipment, so a prosthesis or a computer or whatever. But as I say this, I'm still a little bit short on it. So I think overwhelmingly my vote is short, um, because of a number of reasons, and there are myriad reasons for both healthcare and the other side, which is consumer. So let me change my vote. Actually, as is normal, I start talking and then I have a thought, and I'm like, no, I'm short on this. I am short on BCI. Do you want to know why?
I dare say both I and the listener are raring to go on your.
I think that the whole point is this invasive versus non-invasive. In order to get actual, like, what I see as the real tangible benefits from it, it needs to be invasive. If it's invasive, you have to obviously open up your skull and put something in there, both for medical use or for consumer use, i.e., what Elon Musk is talking about with having a Fitbit for your brain. So you can use your brain to control things or get data from it. It might still be kind of healthcare focused, but it's more consumer healthcare focused. And then going into the real full cyberpunk and having it control other things, and you just walking into a room and thinking about the television, or having a TV series streamed directly to your brain, so you don't even have to go through the labor of watching TV. The point is that you need to open yourself up and have either a little cable put into your brain, a chip put into your brain that looks like a hairbrush, so the little kind of pointy bits stick into your brain. Or in some cases they use a stent, so they send it up a vein and go into your brain that way, so they don't actually have to open up your skull. That is difficult for a number of reasons. The first being just people are like, I don't want you to go into my brain. Even in some cases where people are really suffering from some sort of serious medical condition, I still think there's a little bit of a leap to be made to say, yeah, sure, put an experimental technology into my brain. And then there's what happens if it doesn't work? How does your body react to that? There's a thing where if you put a chip in your brain actually kind of forms scar tissue over the piece of technology that's in there, and degrades the signal from the chip. So the chip gets worse and worse and worse and worse over time. Then there's the fact that, how do you upgrade it? What about planned obsolescence? What happens when these things need upgrading, or in a huge case that I've done some research on, what happens when the company that makes it and supports it goes bust, and you've got this obsolete bit of technology sitting in your brain that is dangerous, unsupported, and the functions that it gave you have now disappeared and are unsupported. So from a medical point of view, which is the part that you would be longest about, I'm still quite short on. And from the consumer point of view, I'm extremely short, because I just think people won't want to do it, and I don't see the benefit, quite frankly.
On the healthcare side, though, people are doing it, aren't they?
They are doing it. They are doing it, and they're doing it in. I don't know the scale. I'd need to do some research on that. I don't think the scale is absolutely massive, because I think the technology is still somewhat new. But yeah, it is happening.
But if you just skimming a few of the big companies, so that, and it does look small, right? So 4 or 5 people per test type thing, but the results are like, hey, this is a person who couldn't communicate at all, who can now text, browse the internet, play games,
Hmm.
and do things directly using BCI. And now with, I mean, just one of them saying now, because of developments in large language models, you can kind of use that to develop speech and kind of more organic speech and stuff. So, like,
This is I didn't mean to be rude, but I just had this vision of somebody who couldn't speak suddenly just going, "You're right."
yeah, I
In the evolving landscape of my life.
that's where my head also went, was like, in the in the evolving landscape of communicating with you. But like, so there's that part, like, people are doing it, and bizarrely though, where I think we disagree the most, I think the commercial side, the consumer side, I think people would love to do this.
But what would they use it for?
Oh, loads of things.
Go on then.
Loads of things. So I think if you were a sports person, just as one example, and you were looking for that marginal gain. So the Fitbit for your brain thing that Elon Musk, I don't know much about it, but if that's his genuine approach, which is basically just like, it's data, isn't it? It's data analysis for like, okay, when you run at this speed, or when you do this speed, you're not breathing the right amount, or something like that. I imagine that's incredibly
I
important.
think that
for
would be
sports people.
banned.
That'd be really interesting.
I think that would be banned.
But it's not banned now.
No, Fitbits, I guess.
Oh, you mean by the sports? You mean by the sports? They would see it as an advantage.
Yeah. I think that would be banned by the sports bodies.
Over a smartwatch?
Well, a smartwatch is just collecting data. Theoretically, you could change somebody's physical makeup by changing their brainwaves. I don't know. Like, I don't know whether that would be allowed.
It's interesting. Well, so that was another point that I was coming to. One of your, so I mean, you should definitely tell the story, because you told me about it beforehand, and it's nuts, isn't it? The company that went bust. But like, a lot of challenges like that will be solved through regulation, which is this is such a ridiculous example. But it's very similar. In the olden days of solar power, you would enter into like a 30-year contract with a solar power company, who would put the panels on your roof and maintain them and everything like that, and all of that good stuff. But then loads of those companies just went bust, and it meant you had solar panels on your roof that you neither owned nor anyone else owned, that were being maintained, that then you were falling into disrepair. You could just regulate that into the ground. So like, in the same way that you would with an insurance product, if an insurer goes bust, your policy is held by someone else.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm not saying that doesn't remove the icky part, but the idea that a company has put something in your head, a healthcare authority perhaps would have to underwrite it, or an insurance company would have to underwrite it, depending on what your regime would be, that, hey, if that company goes bust, it'll be removed or replaced or something like that. I'm thinking of a healthcare industry.
So the story for that is a company called Second Sight, who built something called the Argus 2 retinal prosthesis, I think, the Argus 2, and it was basically for people who had issues with their vision. It was an implant that enabled them to see somewhat. So if you take the technical details of how it worked and etc. out of the way, the idea is you put something in your brain and your optic nerve, and you're able to see better than you could before, which is fantastic. The problem is the company went bust, and then there were all the people that had it in had these implants that were no longer supported and didn't work. So imagine the analogy is that you've got a game that you play, a video game, and you play it with your mates on multiplayer, and suddenly the company that runs that game goes bust, and all the servers that they run for multiplayer get taken down. You can't play that game anymore. You're just straight out of luck. This is a similar sort of situation, but you're dealing with your body. You can't do it.
Right.
And it's not just that you go back to the point you were before. You're like, oh, I had this and it was great, but I don't have it anymore. You've got this thing in you that could corrode, that could cause other issues? Who's liable to replace that, take it out, do whatever? And you could actually be much, much, much worse off for it. Now, I think that company ended up being acquired in a few years later on, but there has to be some sort of regulation for that, because it also goes for not just for obsolescence, or sorry, not for just for companies going bust, but for companies who just decide not to support it anymore or want to upgrade, and they've got a better technology. Like, they can't support everything forever, they would argue, probably. So there needs to be some sort of regulation that says you need to support this, or you need to upgrade it. And then when you upgrade it, you've got to have something taken out of your body that could then cause damage that you then need to and then replace. So I just and in the consumer life cycles that we've got at the moment, people are like, let's focus on this one thing, let's pump all our money into it, and actually we're bored of that now, let's move on to the next thing. And you've got all these people going, hang on, I've got this electrode in my brain that's corroding away and taking years off my life, and I don't know what's going to happen. So so even if there is regulation to say you need to do X, Y, Z, it doesn't solve the problem massively.
Potentially, but I mean, it's difficult because I just want to go back to the idea that most people won't do it. With this one, loads of people did it, even in its really early stages. So thousands of people
With
were
the
using
Argus
technology.
2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or at least thousands of people. I can't find an exact number, but thousands of people were authorized to do it by regulators. That's the part that's a bit iffy, right? So I've said regulators. So, for example, the FDA approved it in the US for 4,000 people. The NHS England did some trials for 10 patients. Apparently, all that happened is the company just stopped supporting it. So it didn't go bust. It was just like, we're not going to find any technical support for this anymore.
Mm.
So it's worse, actually, I think, in a way. Like, more to your point, the company goes like, yeah, bored of that now.
Yeah.
Go do something else instead. It surprises me that regulators didn't step in and say, well, that's unacceptable to us. But these are early days. But it worked, I guess, is the underlying thing. So people who couldn't see could see.
Yeah.
And enough of them went in for it that technical support was required. So I mean, again, this is why I'm long on it. I think that a lot of these. Oh God, I'm trying to think. A word of like wrinkles is probably a bit unfair given it's something in someone's brain, right? But a lot.
Yeah, here you go. Well, we'll iron that out.
yeah, exactly. But a lot of things it's early days, right? So it is early days. The technology is proving itself out in the field. And again, I just think the idea that eventually it moving into commercial, where it's like, well, you can play a game directly in your head. So no VR required. You can, you'll be one with, the medieval soldiers that you're fighting with. The second anyone, I'm not saying that's what people are looking at, but the second something like that comes along, people could be all over it. Or like, you could be smarter, your memory could be improved.
I just don't think they will. I just don't think they will, because I think that the pushback that we get. So the example that I keep coming back to is VR. And just, I'm a huge fan of VR, and VR does have a very niche following, especially in the kind of the simulator world, but also gaming, and more so now productivity. But it's nowhere near the huge market that maybe 5 years ago people thought it might be. And the primary reason people say, it's a hassle to set up, it's uncomfortable, I don't feel great like putting this on, and I don't want to do that. Like, so the idea that people would go, oh yeah, I'll do this because I can have, I need to have an operation to put it in, or even the non-invasive type, like wear something on my head. I don't know, put it in a cap, maybe. I don't know. But the hassle of doing it, and then that upgrade cycle and the concerns over that upgrade cycle, I just think, well, yeah, sure, maybe there will be a niche of people who think, oh, I can effectively become superhuman and one with technology by doing that. But I don't think that's a mass market. And I'm still short.
I think VR. So just touching on the VR one, I think VR. We've talked about VR before. I think it came too soon. And the reason people, so loads of my friends got into it. The problem is it sucked. The games in the early days, the games were really bad. The entertainment was really bad. I mean, the most exciting bit at one point was that you could immerse yourself in Google Maps. I remember that being like, oh
That
my
is
god,
still really cool though. Doing Google Earth in VR is very cool. And I'm not
sure it is.
I'm not a great
sure
person to speak to about this because I absolutely love it. But yeah.
But the utility value, nonetheless, is questionable. One would
Yeah,
say.
but then the utility value of having a brain-computer interface.
Like, I disagree.
Yeah, but
I disagree.
They're the things that you can think about doing, right? So you can think, oh, if I had a brain-computer interface, I could do this, this, and this, and this, and this. But they're not the things that you will be able to do because that's what the technology is capable of doing. Like, having it integrated with your smart home so that you go, I just want to, I'm a bit cold, just turn the heating up. That sounds like a great use case. Like you don't even need to think about it. It can sense that you're getting cold and it'll turn it up. Well, you wouldn't want to pay the money for the gas, but like,
yeah, it'd be bad. It'd just be bad news. Like I might be thinking about going on holiday, and this is the problem with BCIs. The brain's a funny beast, as scientists say. You could just be thinking about something warm, and it's like, oh, 30-degree heat, sure, no problem, no problem. But oh no, I have to think about something cold now to get back down again. There are, and I mean, the research I've been doing into BCI is more the science behind like, oh, this is crazy. And most of the medical journals, when they explain it, and they have to explain it to stupid people like me, right? Which is and they're very good at it. And what they say is that effectively, a chemical response happens in your brain, and generally speaking, it means this.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, it means you want to move your right leg forward, or you want to say the word cup, or something like that. But that may not necessarily be the case.
Yeah.
It's just statistically, it's the most likely cause. And I know this stuff's getting very advanced, and in almost all cases, it is exactly what the person wants to do. But when you get into the really complex things, the things that I'm bullish on, like, oh, you could play a game. Or, I don't know, the control your heating one's nuts. I don't think I would have anything implied in my brain to do that. It's just turn the heating up.
Yeah, I know, but like, I'm not saying you would have an operation just to control your heating.
It's exactly what you're saying, Duncan. It's exactly what you're saying. It's the only area that you're bullish on is not having to turn your that painful process of the giant cog you have to twist in your house. Takes 3 members of the family. But I stand by it. I think, and it's testament to the amount of funding these companies are receiving, but also how easy it is for them to attract people to try this stuff. Now, again, I suspect a lot of these. I'm looking at one called Emotive right now, and I think that's, to use your definition, a less invasive one. So it's something that sits over your head, and it can track emotions and things like that. And it mentions smart adaptive environments, so maybe that is heating, Duncan. Maybe that is exactly what you're talking about. These guys, you and these guys are on the same page. But I mean, they don't seem to have any trouble attracting public attention and people being like, oh, I'll give it a go. Why not? The drilling into their heads, one, or invasive, as you're saying, does seem to be grounded very heavily in medical right now. And again, most of those people are just like, well, hey, the utility value for me is I can now see and I couldn't before.
Yeah,
so I'll roll those dice.
And I think back to videos you see on Reddit of people with like Parkinson's who click a button on the implant in their brain and they suddenly could their tremors reduce drastically. Of course, that is incredible. I'm not saying, this is why I said at the beginning that I'm long on it in medical, but I gradually went shorter. In terms of mass market and the issues around it, I don't know if we're going to be seeing, say, like every Parkinson's patient, like automatically getting a BCI implant so that they reduce their tremors. It's still niche. It's still very expensive. It's still experimental. And I think it will be quite a small proportion of the cures that are available to people for a long time. Maybe in 10, 20 years, like it will become much more commonplace, but I can't see it getting mass market particularly quickly.
Well, it's interesting you said the time zone, because that's what I'm thinking of is not. I mean, the progress when you look at some of the medical trials is wild. I mean, again, just go back to that Argus one, right? People who couldn't see then could.
Yeah.
That's significant, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of very significant results. And I would imagine over the next 10 years, and again, just the amount of money flowing into this right now, even in very niche areas, solving a very specific form of therapy, are getting huge amounts of money and investment from healthcare authorities, but also the private sector. It makes me think in 10 years' time, there is a chance it's more mainstream. So both from a healthcare and therapeutic point of view, because it might be cheaper. That's the other point. This, it's expensive now, but is it more expensive than a lifetime of care, a lifetime of different drug therapies? So the patients clearly by the uptake
But
in
also, they're
trials
like
are paying.
the people to put it in. You've got to be a particular type of surgeon to implant a neural interface into somebody. I would expect. Like, it's not just like
Well,
any old surgeon. They're
well,
they're
no,
going to
I
be few and
suspect.
far between.
Well, yeah, or you over the next 10 years as the market gets bigger, more and more people train in that form of medical care. If it's a long running race. But I mean, back to the commercial point, I still stand by the fact that the second there is, I think VR is a little bit different for me because I could just never, and I know you are. This is what I mean by it being out of its time. When I used it, and when I think a lot of people used it, was in its early days, and it was this really cool thing, but it was very gimmicky. You have stayed loyal, and you are now reaping the benefits of these really cool things that you do and games and entertainment that you consume. But most people like me just remember the early days and they go, forget it.
Yeah.
Right. With this, the value behind it is, I think, is much, much, much different. I think
I'm disagreeing. I'm disagreeing because I'm yet. What I'm yet to get from this chat is like, why would I have this in my brain? What could I do with it? Like, and it's not necessarily all the wild things you can think of. I keep thinking of, like, who is it? Magneto in the X-Men, where he's just got like a path forming in front of him as he walks.
Well, that's because he's a magnet.
That's
he can control metal. That's not what we're talking about at all.
That's the only thing I can think of. Like, and he has that hat so that Mr. X, or whatever he's called, can't read his thoughts.
So Mr. X would have been a better example.
Right.
You should have gone with Mr. X, not Magneto.
Yeah. Professor X. Professor X.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm only aware of a few.
The bald one.
X-Files canon.
Patrick Stewart.
The Patrick Stewart one. Yeah, the Patrick Stewart one. Done. Fixed. Healthcare, I think we both agree there are a lot of use cases in healthcare, right? I don't think we need to belay that point. In commercial, and again, just looking at some of the companies and what they want to achieve, not necessarily whether they will achieve it, is imagine consuming or experiencing a form of entertainment where you can feel it. It's using your brain, so you are now part of the film.
That
in many
strikes
respects.
terror into me.
So for me, as a complete nerd who loves, films and games, I think I would do it really quickly.
But what would you like? So you get one of the things that VR people really like is something called a B haptics vest. You can put it on and you get shot and you go.
So exactly, they're chasing the same thing.
Yeah,
so they're chasing the realism of being immersed fully in an environment, like gladiators, just like, oh no, I've been run through by a gladiator.
Terrifying.
What a nightmare. Don't worry, I'll just load a previous save, and then
yeah.
But I think stuff like, and again, I'm not suggesting that we'll get anywhere close to that, but it seems like given how this is progressing, that it's possible, and there are a lot of companies saying, well, that's what we're going to try to achieve for the commercial space, is to be able to fully immerse people in different areas, whether that's we're going to help enhance their learning by understanding how their brain works. So that's the Fitbit style, I guess. You have something monitoring how
just
your brain
like
works.
Pumping stuff in. So you're like, what's that film where, like, I want to learn this, and they just go, blah, 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 and it's
The Matrix.
Right,
The Matrix. Yeah. I would, once again, Duncan, you know what I'm like. So once again, I would have been up for that enormously. It's like, I need to fly a helicopter now. Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
There you go. You now know how to fly a helicopter. That might be that seems unlikely to me. But being able to say, like, well, your brain is stimulated in this way, and actually you'll remember, 200% more if you're in a cold bath, or or jogging or whatever. I think it's Bill Gates. I can't remember if this is apocryphal. The reason he can remember so much stuff is he I can't remember if he reads books or listens to podcasts while walking on a treadmill.
Right.
And he's figured out that if he's walking on a treadmill, he'll remember much, much more. And the brain does work in that way. You know, there are different and you might be different. You might need to listen to, you know, drum and
So
bass
it
or
would
something like that.
drum and so it
Yeah,
would
drums and bass.
so it would do so it would like change your brainwaves as you're learning to make sure that your retention was better.
Well, no, it would monitor how your. So this is, I guess, this is the Fitbit part, which is like your brain reacts in this way, and we now know that, and
Oh,
you now
okay.
know that, which means you can do it. So, see, when you're running at this speed, we know you'll run for much longer than if you ran a little bit faster or a little bit slower. You know, it's that type of thing, which I think is the Fitbit style of the argument. Again, I can see, you know, in sports, in education, I can see loads of things. And I would assume that would need to get to the non-invasive part where it is just like a Fitbit.
Yeah.
For it to be, to your point, for sports regulators to say, well, this is okay, fine by us,
Because
no
it's
problem.
just reading signals, it's not putting anything back in, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah, which was my earlier kind of, but like more than a smartwatch. That's kind of where my head was. It's just tracking information that already exists. It's not giving you an advantage other than better data analysis. But then there are others right at the other end of the spectrum, which is you'll be able to fight a gladiatorial, but you know, or at least you'll be able to imagine yourself fighting a gladiatorial battle, you know, or be part of a film in a different way, be part of a game.
I feel like the overwhelming sense that if you had an implant controlled by media, the overwhelming emotion I'd feel would just be terror. Like 99, and that doesn't feel good to me.
There's a massive market for it, Duncan. I don't know if you've ever been to a haunted house before. But they're packed with people who are like, this is terrifying and I love it. Or roller coasters, or you know, like you say, happening events. There's a huge.
If it can help me feel
market.
warm and cozy and comfortable 100% of the time, then I'm in.
Also possible, right? That could be part of it. I guess right?
For
you know,
like meditation and kind of clearing the brain and mental health issues potentially, you know, helping with that, then that's kind of crossing the boundary into healthcare again. But maybe I still just I think it has to be non-invasive to get consumer uptake, and in order to be non-invasive, I think the use cases are probably fewer. There is another thing, and this is going back to VR again, but I'll just talk about it because it's interesting from what you've said. Meta's new glasses, they are single screen AR glass. They're not even AR glasses. They're smart glasses, but they have a little screen in them, a bit like Google Glass. But the most interesting part of the technology is something called a neural band, which they have, which sits on your wrist. It's not actually integrated into a smartwatch yet, but you can see how it would be. And what that means is you can be looking over here and your hand is somewhere else, but you use hand gestures like pressing different fingers or moving your thumb like that to control control the menus on the screen that you can see. And it does that by reading the electromagnetic or electronic signals, the little bits of electricity from your muscles moving that the band can pick up. It's not going on movement. It's going on that on that electric signal, and that's a kind of sort of BCI. It's not really your brain. It's your muscles, but you can see the value there in kind of just being able to control something without having to touch anything or integrate with it. So
I suppose it's true. I would agree. It probably is. I mean, you know, I know that there'll be all sorts of people that will jump in and be like, "Oh, it's not attached to your brain, so it's not BCI." But your brain is powering those muscles,
sure,
and the electrical signals, and you know, so
yeah, and
by extension,
I guess I see the benefit in that respect from controlling something with fine motor control that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do, because they have hand tracking in like the headsets that can do it, but it's a bit shonky sometimes and you have to do stuff so you can't really pick it up. Relies on computer vision. This is much more defined and as I say, fine motor control. So I can see the benefit in that to an extent. It will be interesting to see the uptake of that because that's in the market now. It'll be interesting to see the uptake of that.
So as a proxy to see whether or not, it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, I'm still long on this. Sorry, mate.
So we've spoken for quite a while on this, and we haven't mentioned something that is a big deal, which is being discussed by lawmakers and regulators and governments in particular places, specifically, weirdly, in Chile, I think, and various parts of California, which is the rights over to your brain information, your thoughts, so your data.
Very interesting.
So when these devices are collecting data about you and what you're thinking, like who owns that, and what are the guardrails around protecting it? So and of course you would say, well, I own that, it's my data. It's the same as a Fitbit. The data that a Fitbit acquires and then sends to Google or your Apple Watch or your Garmin or whatever. Does it fit in the same bucket as those, or is it more? Do there need to be very much stricter guardrails around it? I think that's something they're debating at the moment, and I see those as as the two regulatory fronts. First, the data that is created and used by these BCIs, and then the obsolescence question. How do you protect against obsolescence or companies going bust or people just deciding not to support something? I think those are the two big battlegrounds. And then obviously the other part is making sure it's safe.
Well, and I guess between the safe and the protection one, cybersecurity is another big one, of course, which we haven't talked about either. Which the jeopardies that I'd say marginally higher than if someone hacked into my smartwatch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to control you, Ollie. I'm going to make you agree with me on everything.
Imagine that. I just say in a robotic voice, long.
Yeah.
But like that's because there was again in one of these journals, one of the questions that again an idiot like me asked is just like, oh, do you think we'll be able to read minds or control people's thoughts? And there, if I remember rightly, their suggestion was like, oh, probably not. No, it's very difficult to do that. If you were to qualify, and this goes back to the who owns the data. If you were to qualify, oh, the person wanted to say the following thing and now they've said it, as reading minds, then I suppose technically that's true. But the idea that they'd get into your inner monologue and be like, oh, Duncan really wants an ice cream. Let's send an ice cream van to his house right now and cash in.
It can't. I mean, like as I am not saying that this is the case, but it's not. People have schizophrenia, right? And schizophrenia. There's a lot of studies into schizophrenia and what causes that internal monologue and the hallucinations and split personalities and things like that. Like, it's not unfeasible to think that could be manipulated in some way if you could manipulate the brain.
Why? I mean, that's what social engineering is for the most part. I mean, we always, from a cybersecurity point, most social engineering we always think of as like someone sending you a dodgy link in an email. But if you listen to call center social engineering, really what they're doing is convincing someone there's somebody who they're not in a basic fraud or incepting information for a later call.
Yeah.
A lot of it it'll be 10 calls where they say like, oh, I'm Brian, I'm there. Oh, don't worry. And they're not asking you for anything, but they're just building up that familiarity and incepting the idea that Brian's a good guy. You can trust Brian. And then on the 10th call, Brian goes like, oh, do you know, I feel like I've locked myself out of the office. Couldn't let me in, could you? You remember me, don't you? I'm Brian. That's, imagine how much easier that would be to do if you could just implant. This is where we get into sci-fi inception like stuff, right? But why not, right? If you can sow the seed like, oh, Duncan does want an ice cream. I'm thinking of like a commercial dystopia here. Duncan does want an ice cream. And the reason we want to implant that,
all the ideas you could come up with, it was like, Duncan wants an ice cream.
So I really want an ice cream. It's, my heating's on and the sun's out, even though it's the middle of winter. So my mind is confused.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, there's so many different aspects of this that are fraught with risk. And do you know what I'm going to say? It's another reason why I'm short.
Yeah, I think it doesn't change my mood
but
at all.
You know how most regulation is written in blood, and
post-mortem. Yeah, almost always post-mortem.
And with generative AI at the moment, they're going, hang on, you can't use that copyrighted material. Oh, too late. We've already done it. Like, the cart has already left the horse. The horse has already bolted from the barn.
Both work, actually. So the horse has already left the cart, but in many ways, the cart has left the horse too. You know, it's
You
not
know what I
following the
mean.
horse.
You
It's
know
not
what
following
I
the horse.
mean.
Going, come back. You left me behind.
You know what I mean.
I do. Yeah.
It's too late.
The frog has already hopped the fence. The duck has already fled the geese.
Those ones, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's too late. It's too late. If it's too late with this kind of stuff, you feel like the implications are much worse. Like it's like the
Yeah, I think that's
Manchurian
safe.
Candidate, right? Like it becomes very stark very quickly. So I think that the fact that they're being debated now is good, but I do worry about regulatory inaction until something goes horribly, horribly wrong.
Well, I suppose it's one of those. It's one of those things. This is the just in defense of regulators, because it's true. It's almost always, something has to go wrong,
Mm,
and then regulators go, well, let's make sure that doesn't happen again. That was a bad idea. And the reason you have to operate that way is you don't want to stifle innovations. You don't want to say like, well, I'm sorry, people who can't see, you're not allowed to use this
mm,
because just in case, right? So they have to kind of balance it a little bit. And then when something does go wrong, like for this, there should be, and I'm sure there are discussions to your point, Duncan, like, well, someone needs to underwrite this.
mm,
Probably 2 or 3 organizations need to underwrite this. So if this company stops giving technical support, or it doesn't work, or they go bust, someone steps in and
mm,
handles it. And it should be a healthcare authority, or whatever they decide. So that I guess is a challenge that will be perpetual for regulators.
mm,
But the idea that we should stop doing something that's, I mean, it's already delivering results. I mean, that's the bit that's crazy. I didn't know much about this. When you said, "Hey, we should talk about BCI," I was looking at all of the different clinical trials, and it works.
mm,
That's the bit I genuinely wasn't expecting that. I was genuinely expecting like, "Hey, we think we'll be able to," but the
mm,
fact that there's so much stuff that is taking place over a very short period of innovation
mm,
makes me think that regulation coming in will help strengthen the industry in a right. So here is, there is specific insurance products now that are mandated, or here is, you can't have customers with the following conditions or whatever. They can't be vulnerable, all sorts of reasons that'll make it safer for people, but in a way that you can still get the good results of BCI. So blind people can see, people who can't communicate now can communicate, and I can control my heating
mm.
with thoughts alone. These are all good things, and I think regulators will help. God bless them.
Final point though, the thought police. Can you and this goes from, so one of the biggest stories on our tech tracker in our discover area for the themes that are overriding that people are talking about with technology is government surveillance. So could you imagine a world where lots of people had consumer BCIs, and you could aggregate that data and just say, well, you were thinking that at that time, you're not allowed to do that, off to jail. You were thinking that your insurance product has risen 50% in price. It doesn't have to be like the extreme, you're going to prison or we're going to execute you. It's just that your life becomes immeasurably more difficult because people know what you're thinking now. That's another impact that I could foresee.
It's scary. So I mean, you would say the same for any medical device, really, on the insurance point. So if you had a high blood pressure or something like that,
Mm.
and you didn't want your insurance companies to know about it, you probably wouldn't share. You
But
wouldn't have a smartwatch or anything.
if you and I guess like the smartwatch is a good example. Like if the smartwatch was going, you've got atrial fibrillation or something like that, and we're going to inform your insurance company. You're like, oh no, turn it off, take it
Yeah.
off, throw it away. I guess if it's what you're thinking, like it's not even like what your body's doing, a healthcare issue. It's just what you're thinking, and you're having
Yeah.
particularly dark or intrusive thoughts, and they're like, right, off you go
But,
to the gulag with you.
there are a couple. So I've worked in the government.
Mm.
Come on, they're not going to be able to. I mean, certainly the
Yeah.
British government would be able to do it even if they wanted to.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that. But there are obviously dictatorships in areas. So like, my hunch is your social safety would play a big role on whether or not you would do it or not.
Mm.
the second one is, again, according to some of these doctors, can't really read your mind. It won't be able
Mm.
to get into the darkest areas of your headspace, Duncan,
Yeah,
and all
because
those dreadful things
you
that you
can
think.
tell what I'm worried about. I don't know if I'm giving too much
Yeah.
of myself away here.
Oh, massively, massively. It's like people who go like, oh, yeah, go in there. Don't open the top drawer.
Yeah,
You know, don't go in
yeah.
there. It was Alan Partridge, isn't it? Don't go in
Yeah.
there. Don't go in the top drawer. But the third one is you'd be surprised how much, you know, if a government or an organisation so wished to get that information, they could do it pretty easily. I mean, you wouldn't be on the internet at all, would you? You wouldn't have
Yeah.
you'd everything would be over a VPN.
Mm.
Yours probably is, given all those dastardly things that you're you're browsing. But like a lot of what you're thinking is manifest in the world anyway and could be tracked. But there are a lot, you know, in countries like ours. There was the one we talked about, our crime episode, one of our most popular episodes. We talked about DNA testing and how governments were getting hold of that data to track down criminals. And there are a couple of examples where they did trace a criminal by an ancestor of the criminal. That I think it was their niece doing an ancestry.com test or something like that, or you whichever one, and then being like, right, there we go, we've nailed it. It's your uncle. We knew it was him. Here's the proof. And since then, most DNA companies have said, we're not going to share any of your information with the police because it was so powerful. A lot, you know, I guess they lost a lot of business where people were like, well, I know my relative's a criminal. I don't want to be dragged off the streets. So I suspect in the commercial side, that'll be written. But then you'll have the tug of war that you currently have with the social media giants.
With like, we need access to this, like, you know, unlock this person's phone. That kind of stuff, those legal battles.
And then it all kind of gets tried out in the courts, doesn't it? Because the idea, I mean, there probably are examples of this, but again, if you were trying to conceal something from your insurance provider and they said, well, look, we know you wear a Fitbit. So we're going to ask Fitbit for the data, get hold of the data and find out. You know, I guess in some cases that probably has happened.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look into that, but it's fascinating. All right. Well, look, I think we've gone quite a lot over time, but this is something we could discuss more again when we've got some more information. But it's a really, we were a bit nervous that there wasn't going to be much to talk about. Turns out there's loads.
Because it's so far off into the future, I think. I mean, that's the good. Some of our, you know, if we were to talk about RPA or clouds, I keep trying to get us to talk about clouds. You won't have it.
No, I would just shut down. There wouldn't be anything to talk about.
Come on, that's where the sponsorship dollars will come pouring in, Duncan, as when we start talking about clouds.
Yeah, true. Fair enough. All right. Well, look, thanks for listening, and we'll be back another time. Ollie, say a big, big goodbye and thank you to everybody for me.
Goodbye, and thank you, everybody, on behalf of Duncan.
Thanks. See you later.